Yeah, cool. So we got 3 minutes. Let's go 3 minutes. Lap around and
Walk up. Perfect.
I played for every team.
Did you really?
Always. Every team.
I thought you were joking.
This was
Power Brothers? Oh, you didn't? That's a fun field. If you haven't been there, you should go. Even if you don't need or want it.
So as a final comment, there could be like 8 people here. You could have 20 on Facebook, you could have 20 Zoom meetings in other offices, but it's gonna live on YouTube forever. So we pretend like we're talking to hundreds of people.
Beautiful.
So,
Hey.
so today's gonna be a little bit different. I'm gonna literally just get out of the way and take a bunch of notes. So Jason and I have known each other for 15 years now. And I'm not joking when I say he's one of my favorite realtors in the country. I'm not saying that because he's sitting here. I encourage you guys to take a lot of notes. So we do not take it lightly that you could choose to be anywhere in the world right now and you've chosen to be with us. My expectation is you walk out of here in the next hour with at least 1 to 2 action items you can implement immediately. So just so you're aware, it's a very casual environment. I've created just kind of a bullet point list of a couple things we're going to cover. And literally, I'm just going to get out of the way. He can tell you his story. Again, being in a casual environment, they're going to ask you a ton of questions, hopefully. And we're here to have fun. We good?
Very good.
Okay. Welcome, Jason Gorman. Give me a round of applause.
Well, for some of you, I don't know. I've been selling real estate since 1993. I started when we still had MLS books. So I had my subscription delivered every month, and then every week you got a supplement in between. So I sold houses where you only had 1 inch by 1 inch black and white photos of homes, and that was all you ever got. You got a new black and white photo the following month if it wasn't sold. So I started 1993, right fresh out of high school. I watched the movie Pretty Woman, and my then girlfriend, we were watching it together, and I was telling, I think I want to buy and sell like international real estate. And she thought it was a crazy idea. She thought I should just go to college. She was at the University of St. Thomas. And I said, well, I'm going to do this real estate thing. I want to buy and sell big companies. NAFTA was just coming out, so I was going to do that, split them up and, sell them to Mexico or something. I was 18 at the time. So I told my dad the next day, and He says, well, you live in the basement, you should like sell a house or something first. And so he gave me the phone number for, if anyone has ever been through real estate school through the Minnesota Realty School with Tim Gallivan. So Tim was the manager of the then Burnett Realty office in Maplewood. Told him my story, and he referred me to another office. Now, those of you that have ever been involved in leadership in an office, like if you can fog a mirror and get your way through the front door, they usually hire you. Except in my case, Tim referred me to Bob Ream, who was the manager in Woodbury, and that's where I've worked for 28 years. Had the opportunity to come to Keller Williams about my family, so met my wife in the business, put an ad in the newspaper for an assistant, and ended up with my first assistant and my wife. And we have 4 kids. My oldest is 20. I have a 20-year-old daughter that's at the University of St. Thomas in her 3rd year, a 16-year-old daughter that's in 11th grade, a 15-year-old son that's in 10th grade, and then my baby is 13, and that's it. So we got 2 dogs. And the opportunity came about in 2001 to start, the first KW in the Twin Cities, or in the, kind of in the Midwest, really. There were 9,000 or just shy of 10,000 agents in the country with this company. So it really was Keller who. And I drove down to Texas to hear Mo Anderson do her little spiel about Keller Williams and why you should, get into a franchise and why this is the company to be at. And when she shared with me, or shared with us, the whole God family and then work, the Y4C2Ts, just the whole culture of this company. I remember calling my wife like the second day, because I had told her I had been invited by a group of people. There were 7 of them that were going on January 1st. They told me in November, and they told me so late because the then manager of our Burnett office was my really good friend, and we would go Christmas shopping for our wives together. So they didn't want to spill the beans to me in case I wasn't going to leave, and then I would rat them out. So they told me at the last minute, which is how I ended up having to drive to Texas for what was called FSO back then, or launch. And I told my wife, I'm like, I'm not going to join, but I got to at least go look at it, because they're like, they're just going to be mad if I don't at least go look at it. But I'm not going anywhere. And I call her the second day. I'm like, I think maybe I should go. Like it, it almost sounds too good to be true. And so needless to say, we joined Keller Williams. There was, 8 of us in the Twin Cities at that time, or 10. And then I met this guy by the name of Dave James. And so a lot of he passed away yesterday. He was my coach, right, for 6 years. I talked to him every single week for 6 years. And that guy, I thought, like, how am I don't want to get emotional. I'm just trying to teach a class on how to be a good realtor. That guy, in the 6 years he coached until he retired from international, taught me the importance of priorities. He taught me the importance of saying no. Like, what you say no to will have a bigger impact on your life than anything you say yes to. You don't, like, I'm going to share with you one of my favorite books I've been reading actually the last 30 days. And it's about time. Like, there's a few things I'm going to share with you today, and you don't know how much time you have. So stop acting like you've got a lot. You just don't know. You can get that phone call. Most of us have had these types of life-changing events in our lives. I got one actually as I was leaving for Mega Camp a month ago. So when they canceled the in-person part, so I'm part of Gary Keller's coaching, or whatever it is, coaching group. There's an in-person part of Mega Camp, or was supposed to be. And they canceled it kind of last minute because of the rise in COVID cases down there. And when they did that, I decided I still wanted to go away. I still wanted to go somewhere for the 5 days and just be away. And for some of you have seen, Mo Anderson has a place where she grew up. She built this mansion of a house in this little tiny town. And now she's renting it out as like a resort. So I ended up going to that place and spending 5 days, which was really cool, by the way, to be in her house where she has like a plate from her wedding, and the book on the, like the bed I'm sleeping in is like, there's a book on the nightstand signed by Gary Keller to Mo. Like, it's just like, it was really surreal. For those of us as part of this company, it was a really neat experience. Now, I say this to, I'm gonna, whatever, I feel like I have 15 things that are super important to share. I got a call as I'm getting ready to leave to go to Oklahoma to spend the time doing my virtual mega camp. And I get a call from a friend of mine who had just recently sold his place. He has been on my team. He's owned a couple of big successful companies here. He and his wife and his 15-year-old, his 3 daughters are older and have moved out, but the 3 of them decided to move to Naples. 3 weeks after he gets to Naples, he finds a lump in his neck. And it's cancer. And in his kind of like due diligence process, he's got an interview Zoom meeting with the Mayo, and he's got a Zoom meeting with this cancer place out of Orlando that's supposedly really good. But his choices are pretty limited, and he has literally no resources whatsoever in Naples, and he has very few here. They don't come with a big family or anything. So I just told him, I'm like, well, I'm just leaving, for Oklahoma. I'll be back basically in a week. I'm like, just come and stay with me. Like, if you decide to go to the Mayo, like, you can stay at my house, you can live with us. I'll take you to the Mayo. I'll take off the 4th quarter of the year. Like, I'll help you. And like, it's not going to be a big deal. Like, don't worry about it. And so he called me while I was down there. And so I'm going to Oklahoma. I got this business plan. I got a lot of shit to do. And, we run a pretty big business. I'm involved in 3 different Keller Williams market centers. We own the title company. I also own a roofing company with a buddy of mine. So I got a lot of stuff to do. Plus I got 4 kids and a wife that like to spend some time with me, and I'm rehabbing a couple of houses. So I got all these things going on. And then I get that call and I'm like, I wanted to be able to say yes. I wanted to be able to help you. The reason I bring this up is because we're at this business planning time of year, right? Mega Camp is my time to do my plan for 2022. It's always my time to do my business plan as a team. We have our team advance on Wednesday of next week. And that's where I kind of like debut my 20 minutes of the advance. And the rest of it is all about what are their goals and what are we going to do to accomplish their goals. As I'm sitting down there, like thinking about my friend's call and just like how life changes, like in a phone call, I'm thinking, like, the only reason you really ever want to be successful is like so that you can help other people, so that you could, if it happened to you, you could take time off and not be worried about making your house payment, or heaven forbid something happened to a kid, you wouldn't have to like worry like I got to get to work or I got to go to the hospital with my kid. And that fueled me to really like think like, what is this all about? So the question I would ask you today is, what do you want to get out of this business? Like, why is it important for you to be successful in this business? Because if you don't know why, if for no other reason, then just write down that you can help someone if they call. Okay, so just for that reason alone, I am so grateful for the years I spent with Dave Jinks as my coach. I am so grateful for the priorities he beat into my head week after week after week. I quit drinking while he was coaching me, like, because I kept feeling like he kept telling me I have to say no to something, I have to say no. And I wasn't like the guy that needed to go to treatment, but I was the person who decided like after church, I'd rather go to Applebee's than maybe the pizza place, because Applebee's had the big beers and the pizza place maybe didn't have beer. And I didn't realize how I was making choices or what I was saying yes to until after I made the decision to say no to that. And so for me, he had such a profound impact on my life. And as I'm reflecting the last couple of days, as I knew that he was, having these issues, and then he made the announcement on Facebook 2 nights ago, it's just such a shock. And I think that all of us, none of us are getting out of here alive, right? Like this is a pretty terminal experience, this whole life. What does your dash represent, and what do you hope to accomplish? And so the things that I will share with you today, I'm super proud that I was willing to listen. I think when I met Dave, obviously I was quite a bit younger. We were just talking, Perry and I at the beginning, I go, Yeah, I got a 20-year-old. I started selling real estate when I was 2 years younger than her, you know, and I think, what the hell? Like, it just seems like it went so quick. Like the days don't always go fast, but the years do. And so I would ask you, you know, again, ask yourself the question, like, what do you want to get out of this business and why is it important? So that's number one. Number two, you don't have as much time as you think. So stop acting like you have all kinds of time, because you can get that phone call at any time, or that phone call you could be making to someone else about yourself. Okay. So that is my story. And that is kind of where, when I came to Keller, I will say another thing. There is no one more disappointed at where we are at from a production standpoint than me. So understand that when you compare your insides to someone else's outsides, to the rest of the world, it looks like we're doing pretty good, right? We did 68 million last year. We sell a couple hundred houses. That's neat. I did 145 by myself in 2001. So when I came here, like, it's gotten better. The biggest thing that's gotten better is the leverage piece. So when I came here, I was working 75 or 80 hours a week, and I was married to every aspect of this business. And what has gotten better is my ability to be done working. In the last 19 days, I have not really worked in my office. I won't really plan to be working until my friend is able to go back to Naples. And if that's going to be 2 months from now or 3 months from now, we're going to find out on Monday whether it's radiation, chemo, or both. But it's probably a minimum of 2 more months. So I intend to really not be part of our team on a daily active basis, at least until the end of November and probably until Christmas. And what affords me that luxury is having a team, right? Having a team, if for nothing else, that has given me the luxury of not being worried about selling houses. I know that we're negotiating multiple offers on a $1.6 million piece of property that we have on the market today, and I don't have to be involved. I did make a phone call on the way here to one of the sellers. However, that can get finished, and I can still make it to my kid's football game at 4. And then after that, I can bring Jared home dinner. And like, I don't have to really worry about checking my 300 emails that seemingly were important when I joined Keller, right? So it's, if for no other reason, to be able to give you the luxury to be able to focus on things that are important to you. Most of us, or a lot of people, have kids, you know, being like Dave was like, you cannot, at the time, again, 2002, he became my coach. In 2001, we had our first daughter, right? My life was like in flux. Like, those of you that have a 1-year-old, like, your whole life changes, right? Perry's could change in this call, in this meeting. Apparently he could get the text days for the hospital. So like, when you have a 1-year-old or a baby, like, everything changes, especially that first, you know, you go from being free as a bird to not free as a bird in like a phone call. So I'm super grateful for that 6 years, because the thing he beat into me more than anything else was making sure that your priorities were aligned. And really saying no is the biggest thing I got out of him, right? In all those years. So, if anyone part of Master Networks? Okay. So I was part of BNI. I've been in a networking group, like, I don't know, for 12 years. Chaz Wilson, the guy that started Master Networks, was one of our partners when we started our Rochester Market Center for KW. And so we became friends down there. He started Master Networks, I forget how many years ago. And Dave Jinks is the dean, right? He's the dean of or the original. I don't know how involved he has been the last couple of years. But he originally wrote a lot of the material. So we switched from our BNI group, we changed it to a Master Networks. And I thought it was interesting because all this is coming up. I'm planning to teach you guys about leverage and like the importance of it and how important it is. And really, like, as I realized during my visit to Oklahoma to think about Mega Camp, it's like, to be able to give yourself choices, like, that is the greatest gift that this industry can give you, right? To be successful, to literally be able to help someone else is something that we can all do, and leverage allows you to do that, right? Because I still have responsibilities, and I don't have to be responsible for all. So I went to my networking meeting this morning, first time in a few weeks, and Dave's training is on leverage, right? Dave's training is all on leverage. And the biggest reasons people, so these are all the reasons that you don't want to get You can't afford it. I'm afraid to be responsible for someone's paycheck. No one can do it better than me. What if they make a mistake? It takes too much time to train someone. There are no good employees. If these sound familiar to you, I will tell you that you can save yourself 6 years of coaching with Dave and a couch. And you can just trust that it works and trust that you're not the only person to have all these worries and to have all these challenges and to think that like the whole world, won't work as well without you. It'll be just fine. Right. And so if you can help someone else, like who else could you help impact their life by being part of your life? Who could you hire that you could, improve their family situation or whatever. So I will leave that with you guys. I don't know if you've been to yours, but it's just a neat thing. Now, the book that I'm reading right now, I've read this actually once already. I'm rereading it, but it's called At Your Best. And so this book, it's like how to get time, energy, and the priorities working in your favor. Those of you have read the book Time Traps. Anyone read the Time Traps book by, I think it's Tim Duncan or something Duncan. Is a phenomenal book on time management. And time is that one thing that has been brought into such clarity for me in the last 3 weeks because like everyone is just like baffled that I have the time to I was at the Mayo 10 times in the last 16 days, right? Like at 10 days, I was at the Mayo out of the last 16. And it's super easy. Like it's just a choice. Like I didn't have the Mayo on my radar 3 weeks ago. Or a month ago. I didn't really think I would be doing that then, but you can make a choice and time is not your issue. You're choosing things with your time that are maybe different than your priorities. And that conflict is where we all have problems. It's when you have priorities and the current choices of your time don't align with your priorities. Share with you a couple things I shared this morning. We have like the coolest time in history, right? Like you think like no one's going to be wearing their loincloth. Some of you may have people in your lives that are going to be out with a bow and arrow looking for a deer and with their loincloth on. We're not in survival mode, right? This isn't like 400, 500, 600, 700 years ago where survival was like a common thing. We're sort of past that, at least in America. Now, a lot of places it's not. So we have these different comforts that you just become so accustomed to and you think are normal. And the average person's, never been in an automobile and you're like, I just have the one I have. It's not like the best automobile. Like the vast majority of the world doesn't have. They don't even know anyone that has an automobile. So the average person, this is a really good stat. I hope someone didn't take my Post-it note out. The average person is distracted 2,617 times a day from your phone. 2,617. Now, if you're one of the people that currently has it in your hand, you're a heavy user. Heavy users, which would be a lot of realtors, by the way, are distracted 5,427 times a day. You have time. Now, there's a very interesting thing I've learned in the last couple of weeks or a few weeks since he's been living with me and we were at the hospital and everything. A lot of people know that there are 25,000 episodes of Law and Order. Now, I had never seen Law and Order until 2.5 weeks ago. I don't watch TV. I didn't ever watch TV. I've just always read books. It's like what I do for fun. So like I buy books, I buy them every single week. Every time I hear of one, I buy it. I listen to podcasts. I watch news for like a half hour and then I basically read books. Now he's over and we're watching Law and Order like for hours. I mean, and it's kind of sort of fun, but it makes me remember how much we all make these choices. Like I've heard these stats that people watch 3 or 4 hours a day of TV. I didn't really think he was one of these people until he's not in my house. And so like, this isn't to say that that's right or wrong or whatever, but we all make these judgments on time, but you're already choosing, right? We all have that friend that works out all the time. You're like, oh, if I had time, I'd be working out. No, you choose not to. Like they choose that that's important. You choose that Law and Order is important or your phone's important, right? So I have shut off all of my notifications. So pro tip, right? If we want to look at lessons and advice, pro tip, set your social media so that you have limits. If you have an iPhone, it's simple. If you have something else, then maybe it's simple too. On your iPhone, you can just set, like for Facebook, I cannot be on it for more than 60 minutes. It shuts off. Then I have to like undo the thing to say it's like, I'm really okay to, cheat. So at least you have to mentally tell it like, I'm not supposed to be looking at it, but I'm going to. So that's a good reminder. So set up that and then turn off all of your notifications, right? I do not have the ringer on my phone. I do not respond to text messages sometimes. Someone else watches my email. Someone else watches my social media messaging. So I just don't really have to pay attention to all these things that get into our lives. That is the biggest gift I took from Dave. It's reminded to me in this book, because life is about choices. And the reason we are, having a tough time getting to our kids' football game is because we're not doing the things that are super important. So then we make choices. And then while we're there, we're on our phone the whole time anyway. So 5,427 times a day, if you're a heavy user. And that was staggering for me to like read that in black and white, because I think this is really like what we've become. We've become so much more distracted. We've become as a society so much more distracted. And then we bulk it into like, it's like what we have to do. And it's just kind of the way it is. If it's working for you, neat. Many times it's not working for people and they just don't feel like they have a choice. So the Alpo dog story, I will tell you, came from my first coach. So my first coach prior to being at Keller Williams was Mike Ferry. And Mike Ferry is still a coach now. A lot of you know Tom Ferry, his kid. Apparently, there's like a little riff there. Because Tom started a coaching company that is different than his dad's coaching company. But Mike was like the original. And so when I was there, Diana Kokoska, so some of you have been through Bold. Who's been through Bold? Okay. So Bold was started by Diana Kokoska. Diana Kokoska ran MAPS for a long time. Diana Kokoska was also coached by Mike. And so when I would go to the Mike Ferry organization back in the 90s, we were at the same classes. I didn't know her then, but she was coached by Mike as well, which is where 50% of stuff from Bold comes from. Like you got to make your calls every single day. And so I'm on my call with Mike and I got to turn in my stupid calls. And this is, so, I mean, just to think of like another example of how old I am, I had to mail in a cassette tape. So you had to have your Walkman and you had to record your conversations on your thing. And then you had to mail the cassette tape to him. And then he'd critique it on the next call. Like the think back. So he had to critique your calls at least once a month. You were required to send in a call session. You sent in the call session and then you were critiqued based on like how many times you said how many times you said and, how many, you know what I mean? So he would just be fixing like, you've got to do this, got to do this. And the big thing was the number of calls you made. If anyone been through Mike Ferry? Okay. They will pound into you, much like Bolt. I mean, do your damn calls. Or contacts. Now they've switched it a little bit. We gotta, whatever. We gotta be 2000s. I guess you can send a text. Back in the day, it was, you called from your landline. So he told me I needed to go get a can of dog food because I wasn't listening. I wasn't doing my calls. He said, basically, he says, do you think you have the ability to do your calls? I said, yeah. He says, do you think you have a choice, like of making them or not making them? I said, yeah. Then you're just choosing not to do it. So I'm going to need you to go and buy a can of dog food, put it on your desk, and then promise yourself you're going to eat it at 4 if you don't make your calls. So I made my calls. So I made my calls because it was a good visual reminder. Now there are many days that I should have eaten it that I haven't. So for those of you that just need to go to the grocery store because maybe you're too afraid to invest in a coach, right? Maybe you're too afraid to, just make that commitment. Don't be afraid to drive to the grocery store today, right? Because I will tell you, it's kind of you take the slow way if you have to, you know what I mean? Like, where's the closest grocery store? Like, what is that, 5 miles? It'll seem like you drove to North Dakota. Okay, because I'm telling you, like when you get down to your car and sometime today you drive there and you go to the pet food aisle and you just buy the can. And I'm not suggesting you have to eat it, but you're at least going to know that like you are the problem. So you not making your contacts is the problem. And you making all these shitty excuses about why you're not doing it is like the problem. So just driving to the store super slow or circling it 8 or 9 times before you pull in the parking lot will just reveal to you so that you can remember, like, it's you. It's not the market. It's not your company. It isn't your stupid buyer's agent. It isn't your assistant that was late. It's you. Because lead gen will fix everything. Lead gen, which we'll get right to there. Lead gen will fix every challenge you have. Fixes everything. If you're a team leader, like recruiting fixes everything. If you don't realize that, then see number 1, like it fixes everything. Because if you're recruiting, you have new, fresh, unbelievable people who love the value, chose it recently, and want to actually survive. And so the same is true when you're working with buyers. We put up with shitty buyers who make low offers and don't have realistic expectations because you don't have 26 people, 13 of which are pre-approved, ready to go and need to be in something in a month. And so we put up with poor choices because we don't lead generate enough. So lead generation is kind of like our one thing that really it has afforded me a business and a lifestyle and leverage that now gives me the choices that we started with, which is I can choose that I don't have to be an active part of my team right now when I need to be active somewhere else more. And so that choice, if for no other reason, you don't know when that call is going to happen. And I will tell you, to be able to say yes to someone or have someone say yes to you is a real gift. And that is a series of choices prior to that that help make that happen. And lead generation is your thing. If you want it to be something else, I'm sorry, this is going to be a shitty rest of the class for 30 minutes because your whole goal has to be to generate leads. And if it's not, then you're in the wrong profession. Like that is like the only thing we do. And we generate leads and we be nice to people. And then when they're ready, then they want to buy or sell or transact real estate. And it's not Zillow, right? It's not technology. Like nothing is your problem except you forgot to call your uncle, right? The reason your uncle's on Zillow trying to figure out what his house is worth is because you haven't called or texted or gone to Caribou or send a DM on Instagram. So technology can be your friend, but contacting and making those connections and generating leads needs to be our one thing. So as I continue to put a couple of hours into my business on a daily basis, my thing that I can devote time to in my team is lead generating. And that's really like what I have time for. Dealing with the closing that's falling apart, no time for that. But I do have time to call an agent or go to coffee with someone to join our team. So those are things that I can. So generating leads becomes our one thing. In 2021, so most of us obviously have made it through the pandemic. We went virtual. So we had our own mega agent team office off-site from the market center in 2015, 14 or 15. We moved off-site. It was a good move at the time. I will say that what a lot of my friends that have gone to companies like EXP will find is that it's really shitty being in your own spot away from the market center. We run a really big team. We got 10 agents. We had about that at the time in 2015. Salespeople, by and large, if you guys, anyone that offices in the market center, okay? And 90% of the people here don't, right? Like that is the preferred route of most realtors, right? Like they like to work from their car, work from home, work from Caribou, work from wherever. And so it was the same with me and all of our salespeople on our team. So I have this 2,400 square foot office that I thought was really neat at first because it was kind of like this badge of honor / ego thing that I got to hang my shingle out front and we got our own team office. Until I realized that like basically no one in the sales side of things wanted to go to a location to work all day, every day. Like they got into this business kind of like for some freedom and some flexibility. They join a team because they want guidance, support, direction, all that. But they didn't want that whole 9 to 5, like hooked to a headset in a cubicle all day. And we didn't create an environment or what the space did is it created an environment where I was resentful of people not showing up when I didn't want to show up either. Like, and so it was this dumb thing that we fought for like 4 years. And in 2019, we decided that we just weren't going to do it anymore. It was dumb. Like, I personally didn't want to go there at all. We had put a pool in the backyard. I'm like, I just want to work from home more often. I want to take more time off. I mean, I don't want to have to feel like I got to go into the office. I was constantly carrying my backpack back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. I'm like, in the office, I'm out of office. I'm setting up in 3 different spots. And in 2019, we made the decision in June to go 100% virtual with our sales force, and then in office. So we moved our team. So all of our administrative people, so we have 3 full-time administrative people, they work in the market center. We still do our team meetings in the market center. Everyone still goes to the market center once in a while, just like the rest of the hundreds of agents you have here. And so I made that choice as a team to basically build sort of a hybrid or a virtual option, which, I mean, thank God we did, right? Because obviously the whole world went virtual in March of 2020. So March of 2020, I mean, we have all of our team meetings are on Zoom, right? We're doing some stuff virtual or some stuff in person, but we're already like we're basically set up. I do all of my coaching calls virtually. It's just made my life so much more efficient. And now that most people have been through COVID, they realize like this is like getting on a Zoom is like no big deal, right? It's not hard. But a year and a half ago, for a lot of people, it was like, holy buckets, this is all brand new. So I love having the physical spot. I love going to the team meeting for our market center. It was yesterday. But you want that kind of in moderation, not that same old 9 to 5 thing that I wore a suit, right? So Perry knows, like this is probably the only time you've seen me not in a suit. This is literally like, I mean, this is weird for me. This is probably the second time I've taught a class not in my suit. So I wore a suit. So I started selling real estate at 18 years old. You have no choice, right? Like you have to buy a bunch of suits because everyone thinks you are basically like all of your clients' children's age. Like that. So all of your clients are like, you're basically the age of the children that are coming along for showings. That's a hard thing to get into. Anyone start when they were like 18, 19, 20? Yeah. And it's like, it's kind of a rough first few years where you're like, people like the most common question, well, how long you been doing this? How long you been doing this? It seems like forever. Like that was my only answer. And I said that for years, like seems like forever. Because what I found is if I said that to them, they didn't ask a follow-up question. No. How many years? Like, so the reason I wore a suit was to make myself feel more confident. Dressing up is an easy thing you can do. Being on time is an easy thing you can do. This industry is pretty simple in the sense that there's a whole bunch of stuff that you can do that's free that set you apart. And so the best thing or the best advice that I can give, best like real estate advice I can give is the number one reason you should want to prospect is because you will not have to be anyone but yourself. So if you've ever been a pushy salesperson, if you've ever worked with a pushy salesperson, if you've ever had commission breath or been worried about closings, all of that has been a lack of prospecting. It's all been a lack of lead gen. You've been worried about your deal falling apart because you haven't done your damn job. And when your deal's falling apart, you're not truly concerned with the client. I mean, you're kind of sort of concerned about the client, but you're really concerned about making your car payment. And so real estate, for the most part, is really simple when we're not attached to the outcome, but we get really attached to the outcome because most people, when they get into real estate, they start right at where they can see. You start here. Most people start, you start kind of right at the bottom. You don't got anything going on. You don't have any leads. You don't have any closings. You got your real estate license. This is gonna be fun because you like people in houses, so this is gonna be neat. So you usually, you stand around, you kind of wander around the office, you ask a bunch of questions, like you're gonna get some stuff going. You don't even know what to do. You just kind of like wander around for a little while you're trying to figure this out. And then hopefully you ran into someone who told you need to like prospect, you need to lead generate, and you don't even know what that means. You're just like, What does that mean? Like, you just meet people. So then you do that and no one wants to do anything. So then you're like, I keep calling people, like they don't want to do anything right now. Well, I mean, most people that you talk to aren't trying to buy, like, move next week. Okay. So now if you keep going, guess what's going to happen? Now, my first 6 months, who wants to guess how many houses I sold my first 6 months? Okay, 0. Yep, 0. And then my second 6 months, I sold 64. Now, right about here, I lost my driver's license, which it was bad back then. It's still bad now, right? Even with technology, like, you still really should have a driver's license to sell real estate, right? It's really hard to meet clients if you got to get rides. I mean, you have to have someone, your buddy drive you. So I didn't pay a parking ticket. It turns into a problem. And so I have a 30-day suspension where I can't drive. So that's this period right here. This is also where I go to the Thunderbird Motel out in Bloomington, which is where I meet a guy by the name of Mike Ferry. He flew into town to give us a little stupid class where I hear about the fact that I got to buy some of these tapes. I got to buy a bunch of cassette tapes. I got to buy a bunch of cassette tapes on neuro-linguistic programming. I got to learn my scripts and dialogues. I got to work FSBOs and expireds. I got to do all this. I ain't got nothing but time. Like, I got 30 days where I'm basically on house arrest. I had a ride. I got a ride out to the Thunderbird Motel for that class. But while I'm there, I bought a whole bunch of tapes. I bought $680 worth of tapes. Luckily, I was waiting tables, so I was making good money as a waiter. Rollerblading back and forth, right, from my parents' house, because I have 30 days into my license. I get this back, and during this 90 days, I'm basically like an animal. I'm a Mike Ferry animal, right? Making 10 phone calls. I had to make 10 contacts every single day, and I did it 7 days a week. And I worked 7 days a week until I couldn't tell it. I just worked. I just worked and worked and worked. I love this business, and really to this day, I couldn't really tell you when I'm working or not working because I absolutely love what I'm doing. I do know that I have choices. You know, like I said before, I mean, I don't really have to go into the office. I probably won't much in a couple of months, but I love it. Like, I love the deals. I love putting deals together. I love negotiation. I love the, like, everything about it. And so during this time frame, that's what led to this. Now here, that's that critical point that every realtor gets. Every realtor gets to that point where it's like the day before the shit worked and then the day it hit, right? Where you're like, the day before it worked, you're just kind of like, you're pretty close together. Some of you could be, or you know someone in the office that you've met that like just literally hung it up, or maybe they took a job or whatever. But that day, maybe you could be that encouragement. For me, it was Mike, right? For me, it was just kind of like, it was at that time where I'm like, I was going to prove to my girlfriend, to my parents, I was going to prove to everyone that this whole dream of like building and selling, again, at this point, building and selling commercial real estate and selling off everything to Mexico, that was going to work. I just had to get this house thing figured out first. But when I started prospecting every single day, like a lot, it worked. It began working, and it worked so well that I kept doing it for years and years and years and years until you get to a point where you're so burnt out, because I was literally like I was just doing it by myself. And so then I come to Keller, and Gary and Dave are writing this darn thing called the Millionaire Real Estate Agent. Like, again, I joined in 02. He's my coach in 02. And like, oh, by the way, right before my coaching call, he's like has a meeting with Jay and Gary about like everything they're writing the book about. Right. So I'm living the book through him prior to the book even being released. And so I really, like, if you haven't read the Red Book 25 times, I would tell you, read it and keep reading it and keep reading it, and read the shift book. Read it now. Read the shift book before it shifts, right? It's already starting to shift. I think 2021, I will tell you, the market is shifting in the last 30, 60 days. And the thing that is, I got to the point in 2006 where I basically didn't do a sale. So we had 183 sales that year as a team, and I did not do, I mean, I think I did 17. So that was the lowest I had ever done. And it was basically running without my daily involvement then. And then the shit hit the fan and the market started coming down and our average sales price started to drop and our units started to drop, but I wasn't in it every single day, all day. And so the thing that I won't, even though I've got this little tiny thing I'm dealing with right now for my friend, I will tell you that, sorry to you YouTube people. Is that what's going to be on there? It's just like my arm for a while. I'm sorry. That's right. And when you're 300 pounds, like I didn't have to move that far. I'm still now in the center of the screen. It's like almost like a blackout, you know? So the thing that I will say is that the market is shifting, but you got to stay ahead of it, right? But what the way you stay ahead of any market is to make sure that you're generating leads, because generating leads is really, that's where the rubber meets the road. All leads are just generated by a contact. And so you make a contact. Did you make a new contact today? Did you make 2? Did you make 10? So one trick, I totally meant to bring my prop, but I didn't. So so what Mike had me do back in the day, I went and got a roll of pennies. A roll of pennies is 50 pennies. I had to make 10 contacts a day. You had to throw the stack of pennies on your desk and you had to make sure you get all 50 pennies in by the time we did our next coaching call. So it was a visual for me and for Diana. If those of you that have been through Bold, hers were pencils, right? She had pencils on her desk. She moved the pencils from this jar to this jar. Like, get some sort of a visual reminder. You not doing your damn job is your only problem. So just until you're going to get this super simple, I barely graduated high school. So that was really a great luxury. I didn't have the complex brain to be able to like make this hard, right? So I just did it and I just did it and I did it because someone told me I was supposed to do it. He seemed like he had really fancy outfits on and flew from California. So I just kind of listened to him because everything he said made sense. And I did it and then a damn thing worked. Okay, if you go out and generate leads, this is going to work. If you sit here and spend the rest of the day, they go, what will I do when I call? Stop it. Stop making it difficult because you're creating complexity to give yourself an excuse. And that is the only reason you want to make it complicated. So creative avoidance. The more successful you get, the more creative you will get at avoiding the thing you need to do. If you want to be healthy, you drink water and you eat chicken or salad, whatever. Like some combination, right? This isn't complicated. You don't eat hamburgers. No one says like, well, I go to Burger King because I'm on a diet. Like that is not like, no matter if you went to school for nutrition, it isn't complicated. You choose not to deal with that. You choose, like I used to work out when I had a coach. I should do it again. So when I used to have to meet him at 6 o'clock in the morning, every single morning, and it worked. Like I just did it, even though I didn't want to. So you have to choose what you value. If you value being successful in business, and sometimes I think people, and I was telling one of my agents this the other day, because I made that correlation, because he's like, well, you just make it seem easy. I'm like, yeah, I make it seem easy because it's important to me. It's important to me, and like I'm living a real life example of why it's important to me. Now, the thing that I also mentioned to him is that, but I haven't made that same choice with being physically fit, right? Like I haven't made that same choice to eat better. I do know, right, about the chicken and the water and the lettuce, and I do know about going to the gym. Like those are not really, really difficult things for me to comprehend. I have not made a choice to make it important. And so when you haven't done that part, so like all of this starts, all success comes down to 3 things. It comes down to your mindset. If you do not, and again, the one thing you can take away from here today is, what do you want out of this business? Why do you want to be successful? Is it really important? Right? And this can be in any aspect of your life. So we're talking about work right now, but you can change this to being a good mother, to be a, whatever, to be a good friend. Mindset, how you think about it is 90% of the battle. if you want to be successful and it's important enough to you, if earning $200,000 your third year in real estate is important to you, you'll do it. Really important, right? Like if your kid's life depended on it and you needed to be able to buy that, and those that have been through both, Diana shares that, like if you had to make that, pay for that unique treatment that was really not covered by insurance and you had to figure it out, like could you figure it out then? Because then your mindset will be in a line. You got to be willing to practice. You got to be willing to learn. If you're learning based, you're constantly going to want to get better. If you're getting better, you're improving, it gets easier, right? Those of you that know people that work out all the time, like they're strong. They like their pants fit. And like, so it gets easier after you do it for a while. And if you're willing to practice and do that and to get better, that's again, step 2. And then kind of the tip of the spear, you got to be willing to block your time to do what's important. You have time. 5,427 interruptions a day on your cell phone, 3 hours of Law and Order, right? 2 hours of Lord knows what, doing bird feeders. I mean, everyone picks different things, right? This isn't a judgment on anything we choose. It's just that whatever we choose isn't important. My first 6 months, it wasn't important. I mean, I lived in my parents' basement. It wasn't like financially I needed to be successful for any other reason than I just wanted to. That moment where right before it worked and then when it worked is a really, really shitty like spot. And so for those of you now, the part that I was getting to, this is how sidetracked I get. I probably have like ADD or something. All right. Right here, right before it works, that's that spot we were talking about. In free fall, right? This crappy part that most people go through, this roller coaster of success, right? What is again, we all start here. And this spot right before it turns, right before it works, is that critical spot. Once it works though, the number one reason it starts to wane is because you don't keep lead generating. You stop the one thing that worked. You start working on your deals and you start working on your inspection and you got to negotiate your deal and you got to call your buyer back and you got to, who knows, you just like wander around all day talking about your deals. And I get this because I mean, we usually have 30 pending at any given time. So we get sometimes 6, 7 messages from an agent in a week. Like I literally don't even know like what is closing today on my team. I don't care. Not that I don't care about the people, we care about them deeply. I don't need to watch every single day, like think I need to be checking in on every file. The free fall is where it starts to not work. And all of this comes from success. So success is what causes roller coaster. Once you're successful, you stop doing what's important, and then you get back down into the ditch. You get a couple more deals again, and then you start working on your deals, and then you forget to do it again, and then you go back down in the ditch. This is the reason you've lost 80% of your agents in this office. Right? 80% of the people that get out of real estate get out of it because of the roller coaster. Or they never get anything. That is a bad roller coaster too, because emotionally you do the same thing without closings. So you thought you were going to get a closing and then it didn't. So the emotional roller coaster of real estate is the reason I would think most people get out of the business. The second biggest reason they get out of it is because someone in their family can't stand the roller coaster. But the roller coaster can be stopped if while you're working to be successful, you keep doing the thing that made you successful in the first place, which is generating leads. So whether you're doing that by Instagram messaging and posting about your new houses, or whether you're doing that through open houses, time blocking is the universal thing right? You need to block your time to make 10 contacts, 20 contacts, whatever your number is. If you're currently making none, start with 5 per day, every single day, 5 days a week. Go to 10. Those of you that have been through Bold, if you genuinely make 20 contacts a day, it's mathematically impossible for you to not have success. It's just not possible. Not by the end of Bold, right? You may not, it may take you a little while to get good at your scripts, to get better at practicing and things like that. But by the end, if you were doing that every single day, you will get better and you'll see results. All right, we got to get to question and answer because we only got like 5 minutes left. All right, so questions so far? Yes.
So who do you have that watches your email? Is that your administrative assistant?
Yep. So my assistant watches my email and my calendar. So she is logged in on that. We've talked about getting her a Mac just so that she could watch my text messages as well, because that's kind of the black hole for me, because I'm the only one watching text messages. So my first one was my wife. That was a pretty easy, relationship, because obviously she's really good at things I'm not good at. So one of the things I took away from Mega Camp, that, find my note here, you need to be really clear on what your strengths are, and then you should hire people that have other strengths. So one thing I did on accident was discover your greatness and focus on what God gave you for gifts, and then find others who have different gifts. My wife and I have very different gifts. It's the nicest way to say it. We're 100% opposite. Like, we couldn't be more different. And that's why it worked, I think, so well. We're both very extreme people, right? So I have a massively high D, high I. She has a massively high S and C. And I don't have any S and C, and she doesn't have any D and I. So it just, we couldn't be more polar opposites on the DISC assessment. And I think that has been really crucial. So that was my first. My current assistant is a very similar personality to her. So that's always been what I look for, is someone who's the direct opposite. I look for someone who's super high S and C, but I want them, I want their disc to be wide. So I work off the disc. A lot of people use, KPAs, they use different tools. I'm super ingrained with the disc, but I look for someone that I can work with that is just personality wise, we're a good fit. But I want someone who's able to be intense. Really high S and C people and really low D and I can be very intense because they're committed to their behavior. So what you have, so mushy people, so flatline people are people, when you do the DISC assessment, that are very close to midline. Those are people I don't have a good time getting along with at all, because you're kind of like, you're like, you just mush. And you're not like, I'm super committed to being the way I am, and I'm 100% fine with you being someone 100% different. But don't be like, kind of, sort of, I don't really. That person is not a good fit for me. So everyone's different. So you have to find, like, what is your match? But it's someone that should have different gifts than you. Now, who else has a question? No questions? Okay.
Okay, so you were saying that David said he had given you some specific priorities.
It was really, so it was being focused. So it was that discipline and focus. So one thing that he taught me that he never actually said, he was never late for our coaching call, and he never rescheduled. He was never late for our coaching call, and he never rescheduled. If it was scheduled in advance, like if there was going to be a change, it was changed. But it wasn't like we had a call at 11 and he showed up at 11:05. This is the guy dealing with frickin' Gary. Like, he's got shit to do, right? But I mean, I think sometimes, again, like, that's something he taught me that was really important to him. Like, he's just on time. He's just on time, and he was prepared. He was a phenomenal coach. And he was, the other thing is, he was really good at asking questions to make me hang myself. in every call. It was like, he had me, the one time he had me go and buy a mirror. So he didn't tell me. He just said they wanted me to go to like a store and he wanted me to get a little cosmetic mirror from Walgreens. And so I did that for our next call. He said, I want you to get the mirror. And I was like, I didn't know what this is all about. It's like, I want you to take a look at it. I want you to really study it. Because that's the guy that keeps letting you down. That's the guy that keeps saying he's going to do stuff and doesn't do it. And if it's not important, then stop pretending. That was like, stupid mirror, like, yeah. My first one, so I started in 1993 and it was right away. I ordered all of his tapes and everything else, but I think it was maybe 9 months into the business, I hired Mike Ferry as my first coach. So it would have been 93 or early 94. What's that? Because he told me I was supposed to. Like, I mean, honestly, if you've ever been to someone that's like, has anyone, like, has Gary anyone been to an event where Gary didn't tell you should get a coach? Like, a lot, you don't maybe listen, but like, if you should have written that note down, like it's that one thing. And I'm coachless right now, or in between coaches, I would like to say, because I haven't found the right one. And I think that like at different times you have those different people, but you should know, like if you're stuck, you maybe need a coach. A lot of times I think it's just someone to basically ask you questions so that, again, like he didn't necessarily always have the answers. He just a lot of times had good questions that helped me to really say, okay, what is important? And so if you don't determine what's important for you, like I coach a lady down in Rochester, and like right now we're in our business planning for the 2022. So she's required, my coaching call is tomorrow with her. She has to have all of her forms completed, which we then will go through on the coaching call tomorrow. If she doesn't have her forms done, she knows, like, I'll just cancel the call. Like, she still get billed. Like, I mean, but I'm not, like, she knows, like, I'm the coach. I'm doing this for you. If you don't have your homework done, we don't talk because we don't have anything to talk about. And I'm not for everybody, but that's like what was a good fit for me was that. And I've had to adjust that in some respects because like Luetta on my team is my director of sales. She deals with a lot of my agents because a lot of my agents don't like me. And but every style is different. So that's why I'm not saying, like, for me, I needed that hard-nosed style. Mike Ferry was he was like the best coach. I switched to Joe Stump when he actually, before he started by referral only. It was like airy fairy. We had to give hugs and high fives. Like, that's not me, right? I mean, I love people too, and I like the relationships, but I was like much more like by the numbers. I like the numbers, so everyone's got a different style. But I would say that coaching is the answer to get you out of a rut. It's also the answer to push you off of a plateau. And it's also an answer if you're just kind of dealing with needing help with you. Yeah. People. So our 5-year, first, let me answer the first question. So what is my greatest challenge? It is a leadership issue, right? Attracting, developing, and retaining leadership is all businesses' challenge. Like if you ask 100 people that lead a company from, $1 million in revenue to $100 million in revenue, they should answer you basically the same. And that is attaining or, attracting, developing, and retaining leaders. And that is that is our greatest challenge at Keller Williams. That is our greatest challenge as a team. And most of the people I know that own businesses, that is their greatest challenge. So when I look at my 135, so my 135 for 2022, it's the same as 2021. But my 3 is systems, leads, and people. Are you going to the hospital? No. Okay. Sorry. Thought he was going to the hospital. I mean, that'd be exciting. So a 135 is really like, what is your one goal? Our 3 is systems, leads, and people. Those are our 3 kind of pillars. And then our 5 strategies, that's what I need to adjust. So in 2021, we're really not on track for where I want to be. And what I've really realized, and probably more so in the last month than I have in the last decade, is that our team is really ready for growth. Our team is, I need to let go. So I need to kind of get out of the way of a lot of like the leadership. This is probably like, you know, God getting me in a spot where I need to really be less involved in the day-to-day, right? If it works out where I'm not even at the team advance next week, like that will be okay, right? It's okay, because that is, so where do we be, where are we going to be in 5 years? We should have 200, like we should have 5 teams in the Twin Cities. So we're in the East already. We should be able to have 1 team in the East, the West, the North, the South, and in between Minneapolis and St. Paul, all doing 200 transactions each. So we should be easily over 1,000 transactions within 5 years. So that would be my vision. The same hub. So like much like the expansion network, our main, say, East, that would be where all of our administrative people would be. And then, you know, over here, we would have a team on the west side of town that would be salespeople. It'd be listing agent, 5 buyer agents, a runner, you know, a courier, that, I mean, that type of thing, like a fields person. So each team, although I call it a team, it would really be the way you would expand or an expansion card. Yeah. What do they say, or what is, you know, like what they say or what you hear often is like splits, price, you know, it's kind of like when you lose a listing. It's like, well, you know, I lost it because, you know, so-and-so did it for a cheap commission or something. When in all reality, that's a deflection, you know, it's a deflection, and it's really you not providing your value. So if you really provide your value and you really understand your value and you can articulate it to them, then that's probably not an issue. I would say that something I wrote down, you know, from Mega Camp that I think holds true with anywhere where you see people go. And I had an amazing marketing person leave our team 30 days ago. And she's been awesome. She came to us right at the beginning of COVID. She stayed for a year, year and a few months. And she was stolen away by a company that was able to pay her a lot more. And so the summary, so what I learned at Mega Camp was that people leave you for one of 2 reasons. It's either because it's good for you or it's because it's good for them. And you should be happy with either. So when people leave, it's either better for them or it's better for you. The better for you part, I think, is sometimes something that we're not necessarily willing to admit at first. And maybe after a little while, we realize, like, you know what, it really was better. Most of the time, I think when you're dealing with people and or losing people, what I have noticed is that it's because like you're growing. So your leadership, or I'm sorry, your ability to attract and retain and attain or retain talent will be in direct proportion to your ability to lead. So as you improve your leadership, then you can attract better and, you know, better and better people. And so sometimes it's just not a good fit. Sometimes it's just not a good match. For us, I mean, it's a if like the values or like how they see the world or the business is different than us, then I think that obviously is like a fundamental thing that you just can't reconcile, in which case then it's better for them to be somewhere else. But I think that, you know, I mean, the other part about businesses is, you know, we've been through 5 or 6 CEOs since I've been at this company called Keller Williams. So I think that part of it, you have to be a little bit of a realist in a sense that the company doesn't have to be bad because you have some attrition, right? 3M is on their, you know, 5th or 6th CEO since I've been around too. So, you know, big companies have turnover and challenges and issues. We have a much less loyal population than say 20, 30, 40 years ago. I think people are, you know, especially younger people, they say, you know, are much less loyal, you know, and they're kind of coached to like, go get a year or 2 of experience and then take what you can, and then go get another year of experience and take what you can. And kind of like they teach them that in school, like go get 5, 6, 7 jobs to get the experience to be then better for that next place. Where I think that could be true, but have you really honed in on what's important to them? So like what I'm learning and being a better leader is what's important to them. Well, so like a good, you can send me an email and I can send you our agenda for the team advance. So I run the team, I own the team, and I have like literally 12 minutes of the 1 day agenda. So I think we show up at 9 or 10 in the morning and I have like 12 minutes. I have the opening remarks, which will be done via, like, I'll have a YouTube video that I'll send to her if I'm not able to make it, if I end up having to go to the mail on Wednesday. And like the rest of it is all team activities. And the team activities were brought together by, so I got to be honest, I didn't really look at the team activities super close because like that's not my thing. But like the people who are super excited about the team activities, that's who put them together. So Andrea, I saw emails going back and forth like, this would be a really fun team activity. Like, I'm sure it will be. And if I'm there, I'll participate and laugh and have fun. And they're good at that. I'm not. I don't even think we need team activities. So I wouldn't be the guy that should actually be in charge of selecting them, because I'd choose none. I'd choose no team activities. We just go through numbers, we talk about goals, you do your calls, and then we'd like, see you next year. Like, that's not like, but that's, I think that's where I've realized in the last couple of years, especially, it's like, you've got to be good at what you're good at and then get the hell out of the way the stuff that you're not. My 20-year-old daughter is brilliant and has come up with some of the cool stuff. I mean, she's got like some cool ideas I've heard of, like she's got some TikTok thing and whatever. Like they're going, I don't even know how to log into TikTok. We're getting one apparently as a team. But there are things that other people are good at. I think they have 4 team event, like whatever you're asking about, like the activities where they're going to go through. And last year we had to write on each other's backs about something we liked about them, and then they put it all together in this big collage. Another thing that they did for me is they had to write down all the things that they brought to the team, and they had to write down what that meant to them and why. And then she had them put it together in a big puzzle piece, and then she framed the whole puzzle, and it's hanging in my office. You know what I mean? So like something like that, like I never would have thought of that. Like that's super cool. And they all got to do that at the team advance. And so like at the end, they surprised me with this great big thing of all the pieces that they brought to the same big puzzle. And that's the power of like letting other people do it, is like they'll come up with stuff better than what you can. Rachel Adams Lee. So she's just a phenomenal like agent, but she's really good on social media. I suck on social media. Like I don't really even, I don't want anyone to know about what's going on in my life. I don't share anything about what's going on in my life. I force myself to share now and then because I'm told I'm supposed to. But that's just me. And so it's a me thing, and I need to probably work on that. But Rachel's coming on and doing a class in our advance where she's going to train my people on like, what do you need to do to build your social media audience? It's super important. It's just not something I should be teaching. I'll tell them to skip it, just call it people. So I think that's where getting other people's input, there are so many really great ideas. And that's why, like, if you want to hire great people, hire someone that's good at something you're not good at. So whatever you're good at, find out what your strengths and your gifts are, and then find other people that have different gifts. What else? We're over time, so if we need to be done, but if anyone has any other questions, I'm happy to stick around.
One for every call.
No, 50 pennies is just, that's what a roll of pennies is. And so it was just that I had to do 10 calls per day.
Okay.
So if you were going to do 20 calls, if you're going to do 5, just some sort of a physical, like I'm a visual person. Like I like, you know, they'll send me a spreadsheet. I'm like, just show me the pie chart or show me the graph. Like I'm just a visual person about like, where are we at? Where are our leads coming from? So that was a helpful thing for me because I could see like Wednesday morning or Thursday afternoon, I could see like I have like 30 pennies or I have 50, right? I have literally not made a singular new contact this week. I mean, it's like you're cramming for the finals then. Like you got a few days and you basically haven't done your damn job. So it was more just that visual reminder. And especially it's crucial when your goal is to like get it done before you get to your 4 p.m. deadline to eat your dog food. Oh, so many of them. My favorite right now is probably, so Ed Milet, if you've heard of him. I think he has a great podcast. I was just introduced to one the other day. It's James Harbinger, Jordan Harbinger, there you go, that one. So I've been listening to that one the last couple of days. The Win, Make, Give podcast, that's Ben Kinney. Win, Make, Give, that's phenomenal. Another one that I love is Trent Shelton. Trent used to play in the NFL. He's got a really cool podcast. So Trent Shelton, I listen to that one every week. John Maxwell, he gets exhausting sometimes, but I do listen to that. That would be like, those are the ones I listen to the most. There's a One Thing podcast. Let's see who that is. I forget the guy's name. Jeff Woods. It looks like the One Thing, the book. It's done by Jeff Woods, but it's really good. And they bring on a lot of good people. And then the last one I'll recommend is Andy Stanley. Andy Stanley does a leadership podcast, and I really like that one. You do? Yeah. And then Simon Sinek. I mean, I love Simon. I don't listen to his podcast that often because he just doesn't do very much. But I love his content. I love his books. Start With Why is one of my favorite books, and that's probably the best TED.com. If you don't listen to TED Talks, go to TED.com and listen to Start With Why. It's one of the most popular like ever on TED. But I listen to a lot of those. Oh, okay. Yeah, Ed Milet does a lot of really good ones. He brings on a lot of great people. So those are the ones I listen to like a lot. And then there's a few others that someone will recommend and you listen to one or two, but they're kind of like average. Yeah. What else? Anything else? Well, you guys make it a great day. Thanks for coming. Yeah, not a problem. I can